Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Partnership Advantage Co-Branding for Growth. My name is Cami Twiggs-Taylor, and I am the Director of U.S. Small and Medium Business Entrepreneurial Programs and Head of Volunteerism at the Nasdaq Entrepreneurial Center. For those of you who may not know, the Nasdaq Center is a nonprofit improving access and knowledge in entrepreneurship to advance economic progress for all. As you'll see in the chat in just a moment, the Nasdaq Center provides programs, resources, and exceptional mentorship to help entrepreneurs fuel prosperity, no matter where their journey begins. Be sure to check out the links and resources shared in the chat. At this time, I am going to launch a few polls to step back and take a temperature gauge on how all of you are doing today. We use this information to guide the programs we provide for this global community of entrepreneurs. If there are specific topics or challenges you'd like us to create resources for, feel free to share them in the chat. Just a couple of quick housekeeping notes before we get started. First, let us know where you're dialing in from by dropping it in the chat. We would love to see where everyone's joining us from during our time together. Second, we'll have a live Q&A at the end of the event, so please feel free to submit your questions at any time using the Q&A function right there at the bottom of your screen. And we'll do our best to get to as many as we can. While you are answering, I'd like to take a moment to recognize the incredible support of our corporate partners. The work we do at the center wouldn't be possible without the generosity and belief of our partners and funders, including Nasdaq, Wells Fargo, JP Morgan Chase, KPMG, Walmart, the Asia Innovation Hub, Wilson Sonsini, the Nareet Foundation, KKR, and BPM. We are deeply grateful for their partnership, and we hope you'll join us in sharing that appreciation. Now, let's take a look at our polls. How are you all feeling? Well, what's keeping you up at night? Is it finance, sales, marketing, scale, pivot, team, or surviving? What is keeping you up at night? Well, y'all are answering. I'm looking at the chat. Houston, Texas is here. Brooklyn, New York. Huntsville, Alabama. Welcome, welcome. Oakland, California. Atlanta. Delaware. Detroit. Tennessee. Beltsville, Maryland. New York. Awesome. All right, let's take a look at these polls. So it looks like sales is number one right now, followed by finance, scale, marketing, surviving, and team. All right. Here's our next poll. I think that's it. I think we took care of them all. All right. Well, hello from North Mississippi and Santa Clarita, California. Hello, hello, hello. All right. Well, without any further delay, please join me in giving a warm welcome to our special guest, Terry Beltrán, Fractional CMO, Market Opportunity Strategist, Multicultural Marketing Expert, and my favorite, a Milestone Circles graduate. Terry, I realize you graduated. We have supported over 8,000 entrepreneurs, can't even get it out, at the Milestone Circles program at the center. And I realized we were on Circle 540 something, and I realized you were a part of like Circle 13.
Yeah, a long time.
Right? Yeah. It's been a little bit. So we're so grateful to have you with us. Thank you so much. And I'm going to pass it over to you.
Well, thank you so much. It's really a pleasure. I had the great opportunity to be at your event in Chicago last year and see everyone face to face was amazing. And this is just a wonderful program. I really enjoyed being a mentor as well. And I think it's very important to have this kind of support for our entrepreneurs. And so let me get started. I'll put my slide up and you can see. Hold on 1 second. How do I do the share? Probably my eyes on would be better, hey? Let's see. There we go. I'm going to make sure that share, and I am going to go in and move a little things around in present mode. So you should be able to see it now. Whoops, and I had one. Okay, so our session today is on co-branding for growth, the partnership advantage. And I think it's such an important thing that to learn as a founder and what you can do in order to expand your reach. So I think you'll enjoy this. A little bit about me. I'm a former GM executive. I work primarily in brand strategy and marketing. I also work in global marketing as well as product development. I've also been a nonprofit leader, and I really enjoyed being able to be in the community. And also my career actually started way back when I was at Michigan State in broadcasting. So I'm still doing broadcasting and media. I got an opportunity to work for various ABC and PBS, as well as Univision, one of the largest Spanish-speaking stations. And also multicultural marketing has always been my favorite thing to do. And when I was at GM, and I came out when I started my business doing that, as well as having a small marketing boutique. So I help founders elevate their brands that attract the right customers so they can build authentic connections to new, and also I help corporations to build connections with the new markets and the multicultural markets and build partnerships that are very important, because this is really important to be able to understand that there's so many important diverse communities out there to connect with. And that goes for both founders and corporate leaders. Companies I've worked with, I think it's always important to know where my credentials lie. I've worked with various companies, large and small, in different industries, which that's really the pleasure of being able to be in healthcare, been in utilities, finance, not just automotive, but also university, and also working with nonprofits in the technology area. So I've really enjoyed doing that, as well as B2C. So I'm familiar with both B2B and B2C world. So what is co-branding? You might be asking yourself, what is co-branding? And it can be confusing because people hear different sides of it. Well, co-branding is really putting two brands together to work closely. And what's happening is they're doing a strategic marketing partnership. It could be more than two that collaborate, and they create a new and shared product, service, or experience. So when I'm talking about co-branding, there are different ways of partnering out there with other companies in order to grow your reach. There's also white labeling, there's distribution partnerships, there's sponsorships, there's loyalty partnerships, there's influencer, which you might have heard of quite a lot. Affiliate partnerships are very popular with founders, and also licensing. So these are out there kind of similar. They're different types of partnership methods, but we're going to focus on co-branding. The benefits of co-branding are that they really get you out there as far as building a faster trust, because you're sharing in the audiences between yourself and the other brand that you're working with. And that's really important, because when you're doing that, you're leveraging that other brand's trust and the relationship they've already established with their brand, which is very important. The other benefit is the low acquisition cost. When two companies come together, there is a sharing of the cost, because basically, or sometimes in some cases, there might be a lower cost for one of them because the other one might already have established a lot of those areas in the first place. And that's really good. And I'll explain that as we go. I'll show you examples. But the access to the partner's audience is very, very much key here. You want to have access because that's how you grow. You are not going solo on this. You actually have built a brand relationship with them. You're both bringing your brands together for these benefits. So the data tells you everything, and I believe in data. So the data behind co-branding advantage is this. You can get a 20 to 40% increase in brand recognition, not just awareness, but recognition. It really gives you a lift because you are being alongside of that other brand that already knows, has a loyal following and already knows their market and their audience very well. So the fact that you are with them on a co-branding performance, then you are really going to be able to leverage that. That is really leveraging the fact that they have already this very loyal audience. And then also it increases revenue by 15 to 30%. So really provides you that platform to increase your revenue. Each of the two brands or three that are working together can benefit from this. It also is really, and in comparison to going solo, if you're doing a campaign, a co-branding campaign, the engagement can go up to 50%. So that is really amazing because that is something that when you have so much dollars that you're spending on co-branding and advertising and just about everything that you're doing with that event, or if it's a product launch, you really can do a lot more if you're going together with another brand. It also brings you out to a new market that you might not be familiar with, and that other brand is familiar. So, and then 68% of consumers say that they will buy and they will consider strongly to purchase from that other brand in a co-branding campaign. So when they see that other brand there, they will consider buying it because they have an opportunity when they're doing this program together that they've already had the experience of getting to know that brand. And that is really key. So it's really important to be able to see that. And so it also, one thing I want to mention too is that for B2B, they also can, when we're talking B2C here, but then B2B can also benefit from this. Partnerships can go up to 25% in sales there too. It's a matter of how you structure it, but this can also go for co-branding together if you're both B2B. So when co-branding is done well, the partnership itself becomes a product. Let me show you that. The 3 principles to make that happen. The 3 principles are very important because this is a strategy. So first of all, you must have brand clarity before you do any partnership. You must know your brand very well, who you are targeting. Your messaging must be on target. You must be consistent. Apart from co-branding, I also work as a brand strategist. So this is one thing that I see so many founders, if you don't develop your brand foundation first, it is very hard to be able to do just about anything to be able to start moving the needle. And definitely, you need to be prepared and have this in place before you consider co-branding. It's also good to know that not just yourself, but make sure that you are partnering with somebody who has irreplaceable contribution. You're also doing this. They're also doing this. That means you have something of an asset to be able to provide to them because their audience is going to be looking for it. They're going to be looking. There's something, otherwise they would just go solo, but you have something irreplaceable. And it's also not something that your competitors have. And then audience is served first. That is so important because when you serve the audience, you're really focusing on them, not just jumping in and saying, we're going to do this campaign together. We're going to put our logos together. It's not about that. It's not so much about that. It's really more about the relationship that you're building with their audience. And likewise, they want your audience. So it's really building that. What are you doing together that's going to benefit that customer? How is it going to reach them? How is it going to influence them to want to also be your customer? So this is an excellent way of getting leads. So there's about 5 different types of co-branding structures. And I'm going to go over each one of those because that's very important for you to know about these. These are just amazing different ones. There's purpose-driven co-branding. I'm going to show you some examples on these. The purpose-driven co-branding is really a cause-aligned collaboration, and it's for social impact. You're creating a social impact together. And this really aligns 2 companies that have one thing in mind. They really have a value and they really are passionate about something that's cause-related impact. And that is called purpose-driven co-branding. Product co-branding is when two brands create a single product together. And that you might have seen quite a bit, and I will show you an example on that as well. Ingredient co-branding is when one brand component is featured within another's product. Now, and so there's various things you might be thinking about. First thing you think about ingredient might be like a recipe. Well, it's kind of similar. There's that one component that lives inside that other brand, and that is so, so key. And then composite co-branding is really when their merged expertise creates a new category offering. And that's really unique in itself because it's really both have something that come together and they create a whole new category. Campaign co-branding, you might have heard of quite a bit and seen more, and that's really kind of a joint marketing initiative under both brand identities. So let me take you through some examples of those. Well, first of all, on this one example, I want you to keep this in mind. When partnerships are built with purpose, design comes more than expression. It becomes a connection. This is really important. This is something I did when I worked at General Motors. I managed this project. I had to go out there and build two brands that came together from two different industries. The vehicle brands came together as design with the fashion designers in New York. Our goal was a third party here. That is the Susan Komen Foundation for Breast Cancer Research. So there's three parties here, three brands in this co-branding, which is purpose-driven. The purpose of this, what was it? To raise funds for breast cancer research. How this comes together and how the matching is so important in this is because every single one of them in here involved, each brand of its own. This is like an umbrella because with GM, we used to be called the people in motion. We had different vehicles for different people, and it is so true. And you could see the demographics were different. Well, the job was to really measure that and see which brand in the Council of Fashion Designers, which fashion designer really connected with that particular vehicle brand. And so you can see Michael Kors was with the Cadillac, Cynthia Rowley we had with the Grand Prix, and Tommy Hilfiger was with the GMC, and we had Joe Boxer with the van. So that fit perfectly with their character, the type of customers that they attract for each of them. So this is where I talk about having a very much mutual customer that you both know who it is that you're targeting, and you're coming together because you're sharing in each other, you're building something new as well. And this also kind of goes hand in hand into kind of a little bit into a composite co-brand because they merged into their expertise to develop a whole new offering. And these were vehicles that were in a sweepstakes. So they were, people won them and they're out there, one of a kind vehicle, which is amazing. The other thing too that both brands leveraged from was the PR. They got a lot of other areas that they got an opportunity to be part of. Not only were they also leveraging the Council of Fashion Designers events in New York City, but also the fashion designers had an opportunity to come to Detroit and be part of this massive launch that we had with celebrities and top models and everything. So this is a really good example of purpose-driven co-branding. Now you might say, how would this fit as far as anyone else who's more of a smaller? This is a big corporate, they've got big dollars. Well, think of it here. Below I put down an example. Pet groomer and a animal rescue. They could come together and they could create the Adopt a Makeover. So funding for, like, for instance, having a little spa treatments for newly adopted pets. So the pet groomer comes together with the animal rescue and they create this synergy together. Both really have two different audiences. They have their audiences, but two different maybe reasons why they have their audiences. One's really trying to make sure that the animals are finding a good home. The pet groomer, obviously, that's exactly what they do, and they want to expand their reach. So coming together to do this adoption makeover was very unique, and it was very much a way of being able to do a purpose-driven co-branding. So you cannot buy your way into a community. You partner your way in. As a consultant and doing multicultural marketing as well as branding, I have various different brands, and I had this opportunity to do co-branding for Founders Brewing Company, just based out of Michigan, and a second microbrewing company in the state, and also very well known nationwide. They developed this product, which was a Masagave hard seltzer, and they wanted to launch that into the Hispanic market. And they had regions in particular we're looking at. So in order to get in there, you really need to be culturally sensitive. You really need to go in and be able to understand. It just has to do a lot into what I also do is cultural intelligence and being understand and understand how you need to also provide benefit to be in that market and how you're showing you're part of it. Well, Jumex is a well-known nectar juice in Mexico. And I brought Jumex to be a co-brand partner with Founders to launch their Masagave hard seltzer in various Hispanic markets. There are many of them in practically every state and city, major city. And so this was an opportunity for Founders to leverage that relationship that Jumex already had with the Hispanic community locally in these states in order to be able to launch with them. So we developed this campaign that was bringing them together and developing these 3 unique cocktails. As Latinos, we love drinking cocktails as well. So here was a fun thing to be able to connect the nectar juice with one of the hard seltzers that had a different type of flavor. So we did a mojito, strawberry daiquiri, and paloma. They were really targeting different regions where they're more primarily reaching the Mexican market, more of the Cuban market, and also the Puerto Rican market, like in New York. So we had various targets there. The beauty about this was this couldn't have been as such great timing and everything, but Jumex was also coming out with a special design for Day of the Dead. And the launch date was November 2nd of Day of the Dead because Masagave had that Day of the Dead design. It had their campaign in English and Spanish, and it was very much with that. So you can see the creative work flowed just perfectly. But the most important thing was Jumex has an aisle full in these Latino markets, and they're just very well known and prominent. And this gave Founders Brewing Company the opportunity to go into a new market that was for them with a new product without having to just be sticking out, not having that relationship. So here they were able to build a relationship through Jumex. So that's a good example for product co-branding. Now, this can be an example as well for a wedding photographer and a wedding dress boutique. Let's say they co-create a gown gallery portrait session. Both of them have a benefit because they both have definitely an interest in that same category. They both have the same customer interest, but they serve differently. They're not competing in sales. They're complementing. So this is something that's really good. So there's 2 products that they're offering. So then we go into ingredient co-branding. And ingredient co-branding, if you recall, I said one brand component is featured within another product. And in this case, you might, of course, have heard plenty about Bad Bunny and the halftime. I think that's been very prominently taken well, and it's been all over until today. I even did a podcast on it. If you go to my podcast about all the Easter eggs that he put in there. And the one thing that people didn't realize, and I thought was really unique, as Adidas designed a shoe with Bad Bunny's cultural and direction. So these are Bad Bunny Adidas shoes. And he wore them the day of the halftime there at the Super Bowl. So, and they were launched just a couple days before. So this is an ingredient co-branding example, and a very good one, because I think you see how there's this relationship where they actually he's kind of put in his culture, his ideas, what he wants into the product that Adidas makes already. And that's really what I'm featuring here. Now, how you would use that as far as being a founder is, there's just an example here. A local honey product producer and a craft brewing The local honey has an opportunity to be part of that craft brewery with a honey ale labeled, brewed with honey brand. That honey brand could be something locally. Let's say it's a local honey brand that does something with founders, for example, and they call it wildflower honey. That is going to show you an example how that ingredient co-branding works. Now we're going to composite co-creation, and you might have seen this a lot. I'm sure that you're very familiar with this particular brand and co-branding that's taken place. I think we've seen others do similar. But Taco Bell and Frito-Lay came together. And of course, the Doritos was the shell. And they're more in the snack industry. So look at this way. They're two different industries, but yet they came together because they have that interest with the same audience. So what Taco Bell and them came together, they made this campaign. So they made this beautiful taco together with the Doritos. And so it's Frito-Lay and Taco Bell coming together for a composite co-creation. How that works for a founder would be that if there's you're a therapist and you have a wellness coach that you know of, you can integrate a mind and method sort of 90-day program. So you're kind of integrating something together because you have that same audience again. There's some interest, but you're helping them. The therapist is working a little differently. The wellness coach is something interest. So there's an integration there. It's mind and methods. So it could be mind and body as well, depending on what the wellness coach does. Could be more about physical activity or some area like that. So these are examples that how you can leverage something that you've seen the big brands do. So this is not just for big brands. Smaller brands and founders can do the same exact thing. Now with Spotify and Uber, they're a perfect example for a campaign of co-branding. I love this one. They came out with the opportunity where if you had Spotify and you got an Uber, and you could immediately set it up. You got the Uber for you. There's a way of setting up to know that you have Spotify. And immediately when you get in the car, rather than listening to that driver's music, your music was already playing. So what a cool idea. I thought this was awesome and particularly like this a lot. And so what more does that Uber driver want to do to make sure that that customer is happy and satisfied and he gets a good rating? So yeah, so Spotify also had the opportunity to be part of this. So it was a really good campaign as far as co-branding goes. So an example with that would be like a real estate agent. Oops, I went back a little here. Okay, a real estate agent and interior designer. They co-host a home styled for selling video series. And that's really somewhere where a realtor can work with an interior designer. The benefit of this is for two ways. A person who's selling their house, they need to make sure that it's spruced up. What kind of ideas can they have to make sure that the home is really set up for selling? But then even the people that are buying might get some ideas from this and say, hey, I could probably use that interior designer. So it's a win-win. You've got that same audience, the same customer, except there's two different coming together. You're leveraging that realtor's audience and the interior designer is leveraging, you're leveraging the interior designer if you're the realtor, so vice versa. So it's a really good method of using campaign co-branding. So there's strategic benefits here. There's like basically what we're doing here is it's one smart way of being together versus being alone. You're campaigning together or you're building these different types of brands that I mentioned, co-branding strategies together in order to be able to build even more. And this is really smart because you really have the opportunity to come together with a different puzzle. There's the impact that you're building. There's the awareness that you're building. There's also the opportunity to increase that consideration for your brand, then increase your revenue, not just leads, but you can also increase those things, which are really important. And let's see. So finding the right partner is really important. When you're considering co-branding, you really need to make sure you're looking at 3 filters. that separate the strong fit from the forced ones. And sometimes you might think, okay, I'm just going to go ahead and just create this, see if I can find someone with the slap our logos and do something. That's not the way to do it. It really isn't. You need to make sure you have a shared customer and make sure that you look for a business that serves the same customer. As I mentioned, that was something that in each one of these examples was very, very prominent, but they don't compete for the same sale. You're not competing with the same sale. So it's not your competition. And they don't share that competition with you as well. You have somebody that you're providing something unique to, and this is how you're going to come together. And then also match values and reputation. So a partner's reputation becomes part of yours. The moment you start co-branding, their reputation becomes yours. So it is so critical that you match in values, you match with quality, in the consumer's experience as well, because this is really how it's going to build credibility for you instead of putting risk. You don't want any risk. And then active audiences. You want to make sure you're accessing the audience and they're very active. So you're partnering with a brand that already has a very active audience. You want access to that because they already have something that you need, and vice versa. They might want something that you need as well. It's got to be a win-win situation. Like some examples you might want to look for: steady foot traffic, a strong social following. They might be also loyal in the community. There's something about them. The community is very much very, very much interested in working with them constantly. You see them very present in the community. And so the best partnerships really open doors for you. And you want that. And this is very important to be able to fit like that. So that's really, and this is all because you want to be able to do that puzzle piece that I showed before, which is your market reach and your growth. You want to expand that. You want to have audiences that are going to grow with you. And you want to be able to build credibility. And you want to be able to have that efficiency where you're going to start building revenue. It won't happen right away, but definitely these are the tools to make that happen. So when you're looking for a opportunity to be a co-founder or co-brand with someone, these are really critical things that you need to consider. You need to consider where you're going to start. Don't think you can just jump right in and be, with a major company and you're not. You got to consider where your base is. So you got to start co-branding with maybe a partner that matches more where you are. Not only where you are as far as physical, but where you are in your level of your business. And that definitely is very important. So we look at base as your foundation. I'm looking at local, like there's local peer brands that you could serve. You're serving the same audience, but you can definitely provide something at your current stage that will benefit them. You're both at a certain stage and you can really benefit each other and start building that skill as well and sharing the wins. And there's a proof of concept between the two of you of what you're doing together. It's low risk. You got to share audience, and it's a really good foundation to start with. But again, make sure that you have a very clear message for your brand, that your foundation has been established. You know exactly who your customer is, what you're offering, how do you set yourself apart from the competition, because that's what they're going to be looking for. And that's what you should be looking for as well if you are approached or doing a joint co-branding partnership. Then when you go from there, your next step would be really growth edge. You're going to get better. You start growing into more, maybe a regional, more established, more broader reach and a borrowed scale as well, because you're going to start seeing that you can work with maybe a brand that's a little bit larger than you, but you have something in particular that you're scaling that they want, something unique. It's not uncommon. You'll find a big brand that kind of looks and says, well, we need something unique. We want to be local, and we start looking for that. So that's something where you start your growth. You've already done this at a lower level, but like, for instance, the example that I showed was with the locally honey producer. That could be someone with a farm market, for example. They can actually have a local harvest box or something like that. So those are really important and very key. And when you start growing and having that experience, you really start going into best, a bigger reach. And in this reach, you're developing this partnership. And national, it could be a national opportunity for you to do something with a broader brand that does a lot more nationally. You want to grow, you want to get to that point. It might be enterprise, it might be transformational, which that is really important. And category, which I have a typo there. But anyway, so category defining as well. So you're defining those categories that you're going to work with them. And that is really key because you want to be able to set yourself apart. So this is kind of a growth ladder. The one thing I want to mention here for an example for me is that I also started similar to this. Although I was at a corporate level and we did a lot of launching and a lot of events, I started doing smaller events for nonprofits, helping them understand how to leverage that, how to be more organized, how to really make it win-win. And that started evolving to doing things for local companies that really wanted to make sure. I did for regularly, year after year, a big vendor symposium, with 300 vendors. Then after that, they were locally, but then after that, I worked with companies that were more national. So I started going from the base of doing something smaller and bringing what I knew at corporate that would work for a local nonprofit and bring it into the next level of, just having the event being here and having local vendors, building that and making sure that everything from the event, from the marketing, the publication, helping make sure that the vendors, their booths, everything was in place, going to best and working with where I was bringing national into an area where this was national vendors that needed to come, having everything organized, making sure that I worked with the caterers, the flower people and the printers and even their own employees if they were volunteering to be at the registration desk, things like that. So it kind of gives you a little bit of an example that even as a service base, you can grow that way. You're doing some partnership with those that are serving event planning. There are a lot of people in an event planning that you touch with. You touch with the caterers, with the florists, with photographers, with the AV people, because they are most unlikely going to be rented out and they're nationally known as far as organizations and tell each other who to contact. So you build that relationship from small to large. So it's really something I want you to consider and how you're going to start and grow. So co-branding partnership isn't a marketing tactic. It's a growth strategy with consciousness. And that's really important because it's all about, making sure that you're not just about the gain. You're really looking at about how you're going to grow with your partner. How are you going to make sure that what you're doing is really benefiting that customer, that number one person? This relationship is something that, you work on because you both have something you want to give that's special for that customer. So, tactics are often more transactional. This is really a method where it's more relationship based. You can run ads and get clicks and make a sale, but that's not really what it's about here. Because in the end, the best thing you could say about your brand is that you have loyalty. That is when you are a winning brand. And what better way of doing this? You want to keep that. That's a strategy that's so important. So you have to make sure that your decisions are guided by your values and not just metrics. And specifically here in co-branding, these are 3 things to consider. You need to be intentional as far as being a partner selection, and you need to make sure that you have a mutual benefit. And it's not about exploitation and saying, okay, I'm going to grab their audience and everything. It's not that. It's really a partnership. It truly is a partnership. And that you're both coming together and looking at ways that you can work together and make sure that you're creating something of very much value. And it's all about value, being value driven. And once you do that, you've got this reputation, and the accountability is so important for your brand. The accountability that you come through and you've done something so unique together. And it's really a win-win. What's best way to be able to get leads? What best way to start getting that leads in an area that you just never thought you would get it, but both you just had a common situation where you both were serving that same customer, so it worked out. but you need to make sure that you still protect your brand standards and you hold your partners' standards also. And you understand that they're also with you. You're both in it together, and it's very important to consider those things. So, and that said, what I just told you, the core problem that most brands have is misalignment at the start. At the start, you really got to make sure that your execution is correct, that you're not misaligned, that all these values, everything are discussed. Don't just, start contacting someone and saying you do this. You need to really do your homework. You need to study through and see what is it? How are these outcomes? How are we going to match? And a lot of this is really going through the process of taking a look at who's out there and start evaluating them, making sure that the visibility over relevance, so you really got to make sure that you're relevant. And those brands that are just putting logos and slapping instead of, you need to be meaningful in your connection. And that's important because audiences will tune out if they see that you're not really providing something of value, you didn't come together for something that's original and just, it's just a couple of logos slapped together. That's all. What does that do for me? So that's really important to always think about the customer first. And the mechanics. Sometimes the paperwork is left. I totally advise everyone, even my clients, big or small, to make sure you have an agreement. An agreement is so important. I mean, we can't do anything without making sure in advance you know what you are agreeing with in paperwork and those things. I mean, as a business owner, you must always have a contract or some legal agreement. You must have someone check it through, make sure everything is right, because you never know. Something could go wrong, and both of you need to make sure that you're prepared for that. But making sure ahead of time that you go through that and that paperwork and have a good plan from the start is really important. So you need to make sure of that. So then you have a good relationship with the other brand that you're working with. Okay. So of course that would derail the partnership. It would derail it because you're doing a transactional thinking. You're not thinking relationship. And that's really something that could definitely erode it because it becomes short term. You don't get a chance to be able to do this co-brand opportunity with that brand again because they didn't really see that you were collaborating with them to really do something together that would be genuine and could grow from it. Because just imagine if one thing works really well, you can grow from it. And that's really where you start building that customer base. The vanity metrics are also another thing. It's not really about chasing those impressions or seeing those results. Don't measure that. I always say, your brand growth doesn't have to be measured by likes. It should be measured by loyalty. It should be measured by how many brands refer or how many customers refer you to someone else. That is really key. And then cultural tone deafness, because I do multicultural marketing, I really think that you have to be very sensitive to the multicultural audience. So cultural relevance is so important. And it's a layer that also should be considered in messaging if you're coming together. Maybe one of you have a lot of better relationship with a particular market. And that is important. So really come together and provide that expertise and what you know about that local market. And that really is another good way of coming together as well. So, but each one of these is fixable if you catch it before the launch. That's really important to know that. So when partnerships are built with purpose, design becomes more than expression. It becomes that connection and a long-term connection. And you want that. You want to build loyalty. So are you ready for co-branding partner? Are you ready to start building that relationship? If you are, make sure that what matters is setting up your goals, making sure that you're finding a partner that aligns with what that customer that is your customer avatar is, making sure that it aligns with just about everything else, your values, your brand voice, your belief, your vision, your mission. And then also make sure that when you do the outreach, it's going to be an outreach that really benefits that customer, that you're working together on a plan that's going to benefit them, that's going to work really well with them. And this is going to be something that long-term you can grow. And if you're going to want to grow, when I showed you building your base to going better and going best as far as growth goes, as far as building, as you scale your company, you might see scaling to grow with other brands larger. This is a great experience for you. So your outreach, you learn how to assess, because assessment is all important. There's a whole process I go through with my clients. It was really an assessment of seeing who is out there, how are we going to build that campaign, or if there's a right person for what we need. We need to understand the goals. What is the goals here? What is the goals for them? What is it that they might need that you can also provide? Not just that they might have the market, but how can we help them get into other markets? So that is really important. So these are important things that matter. Now, I know that sometimes it's kind of overwhelming, but I think that being able to measure where you are is really key. So I have this free gift for you. And if you want to scan the QR code or go to the URL at the bottom, it is a scorecard. And when you go into this, it's going to ask you these 5 key areas that I've talked about. And it's going to ask you specific questions, and it's going to help you determine how ready are you to develop a co-brand partnership. How ready are you? Because you've learned a lot from here, but that really is going to help you as far as seeing where is it that I need to develop myself, and where is it that I might be missing that I need to work on more. So I really hope that you have a chance to download this and really get the chance to use it, because I think it's so important to do this assessment before you start moving forward. And I really think it's a great way of expanding your leads and your reach. I love it. I use it as well. And I think that both service, B2B, and product based, especially if you're in those local areas, you want to get into local markets and then expand to national, those areas all benefit from co-brand in any of these structures that I shared with you today. Because when you build something, we build it together. Things that I provide, just so you know more about me and how I work on this. If you're curious about more about partnership, I'm happy to have a readiness call with you. I do provide a link. If you download that one particular QR code or that URL and do your assessment, you will also find a link to do a 15-minute call with me. And I'd be happy to learn more about what you do and see what you're thinking about. I know it's something new for a lot, but there's such possibilities there. And if you're ready to act, I do partnership strategy sessions as well. I'm about to prepare, thinking of doing a group one, I think. I think that would be really fun. And so if you're interested in that, make sure that you also reach out to me and let me know. And scaling, co-branding advisory, I do that from any size. And it's really more about the end-to-end execution, the support, partnership, the architecture. Really, the cultural intelligence falls into this, as you saw what I did for Founders Growing Company. But I also have helped many small businesses connect with other brands in order to really increase their reach, which I enjoy doing that because I think there's such a win-win when you do it the right way. So the partnership advantage is just, it's not a concept. It's a discipline, and I'd love to help you build it. So I thank you so much for this opportunity. I really enjoyed being able to share with you something that I have always been passionate about since I started with GM and I worked with Concept Pure. And I have the opportunity to do it for big and small outside now and on my own, which I really enjoy. Please link to me on LinkedIn. I'm a big LinkedIn user, and I have a YouTube channel where I call myself the brand therapist. And I hope that you can support me in that and learn more things about that there. And thank you so much, Tammy. Questions?
That was, yes, we do have lots of questions. That was amazing. Thank you so much. I will say there are 2 nuggets that stuck out to me. Making sure that you're guided by your values. Did y'all catch that? Making sure you're guided by your values in anything that you're doing. And then the other one was, when you have loyalty, you are a winning brand. Like, what a way to have a measurement of, hey, am I doing it right? going through that process. Thank you so much. And yes, we do have some questions. We have a few more minutes left and we have time to grab some questions. If you have questions for Terry, yes, please put it inside of the Q&A function at the bottom. And then we're going to transition now into our Q&A. But before I do, I have something I want to quickly share to each and every one of you really right now. If capital is also on your mind right now, you've been wondering what it takes for you to access funding, this is for you. So we just launched at the Nasdaq Center our Capital Compass, a free toolkit that can help you understand exactly where you stand and what it actually takes to get funding ready. And so we have the link for you right there inside of the chat. And so if this will help you clarify your capital options, get lender ready, and know what to prioritize next. So download your toolkit today. We're also having upcoming sessions that walk you through together. We'll walk through together. So be on the lookout for those upcoming classes. All right, now let's get back to Q&A. And the first one that's here for you, Terry, is what if your company what if you're the company others want to co-brand with, okay, because you're the one with the audience? We currently offer sponsorships for companies since we have their ideal clients. So how do you differentiate between co-branding and partnerships?
That's interesting. Well, sponsorship, as I mentioned on the list, there's different kinds of partnership, and sponsorships is a different kind of method of doing partnerships. And what's really important with sponsorship, because I've also led a nonprofit, is that if you're on the other side and you've got, I didn't quite understand, you provide the sponsor, you're the sponsor for the, and people are trying to reach out to you, is that correct?
Yeah, it looks like that for their company, many people approach them for co-branding opportunities.
Yeah. I think that what's really important is, like I said, make sure that you evaluate every single one of those, because you're also trying to develop something. If you're just sponsoring, you're not just doing it for that. You have a company that either needs to build awareness or build a reach or get more customers or build more relationships if you're B2B, and that's so important. So I've been on both sides of the aisle, both at corporate, being also doing, deciding on which, where to put our dollars as far as sponsors goes. And I know that it can be very, very time consuming because there's so many non-profits out there. But really evaluate. The other thing that I've learned from being also outside and being a nonprofit leader, there's so many out there. You can be inundated. You really need to get yourself step outside or ask somebody, even like me, I look at outside and I evaluate because I know what it feels like being inside and being overwhelmed. You really need to have someone help you understand, this is the market I'm in and how am I going to make a decision on where I put my dollars. But have a goal set for you, because who you're going to decide on makes that difference. It sounds like you really are in the driver's seat, and in being on the driver's seat, you got to be very careful where you're putting those support in, and also the relationship too. Where do you want to develop that relationship more, and then see what is it that they provide. A lot of in the sponsorships would really, when I was a nonprofit, it really meant so much to me to make sure that I doubled my memberships, that I gave something to my sponsors. It wasn't just about logos. It was about what are they going to provide, to the members? How are they going to get in front of my members? How are they going to be able to showcase what this company offers? Because bottom line, whatever they are, whether they're selling appliances like Whirlpool or whether they're applying, insurance or whatever, there was a goal for them, bottom line, why they were sponsoring and why they were there, and they wanted to do a reach. And so it was really important for me to have a win-win situation. So that's something to consider. I hope that helped you.
Thank you. All right. So I have another question. Actually, I have two that I'm going to kind of put together for this. So when we think about co-branding, is money exchanged in co-branding? Also, do you create an SOW contract agreement, or does it have to be a legal entity created?
That's a very good question. I totally agree that you should have some sort of contract. If anything you do, always have a contract, because you may, as far as money exchange, let me answer that first one. It depends. Now, it depends that if you're working with another brand and the brand has already established something and they already did the advertising, they already put the dollars in, they might just say, no need to do anything. We already got this covered. We already paid for pre-production. And we'll just give us your assets and we'll put it in. That's kind of a really nice win for you. Same thing is that if you're the one having already invested in something, but it would be so much better if you had that brand be part of it. Then if you're doing that, then basically you have this opportunity to, kind of say, this is the investment I'm putting in. What is it, that maybe would be a value or just something you can add to it. This is the beauty about co-branding is that you're sharing in the cost. You're not exchanging money, but there's a matter in the contract of what you're doing of value. What is it that you're going to do together? You're actually being able to reduce your costs. And you should be. You shouldn't be doing everything and paying for everything yourself. That would not really be fair, but in some cases, maybe some might do that. It depends again with the relationship. Always have a contract, have a lawyer look at it. Again, evaluate. And when you do the assessment, you'll see the questions I asked there. Evaluate as far as what is it that, where's the benefit here? How are they going to be of value? And then really evaluate what is it that you're going to offer the customer? How is it that it's going to be a value? Because you're creating something new. You're investing in something to offer that ideal customer that you both share. I hope that helped.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. We're about at time. Terry, any last words you would like to share with our community before we wrap up?
I'm going to stop sharing so you can see my face. There we go. What I want to share with you is that your brand is so important. So when I say about make sure you know what your brand is all about, your foundation, and anything that you do, co-branding or anything, make sure you've got that established, that you know exactly who your audience is, your messaging. And that is so important before you do anything, because your growth will happen faster if you are very clear and your customers are clear on what you offer, and your partners will be clear on how you would be a great co-branding partner. That's my biggest thing that I want you to make sure. Take the time to do the evaluation. I do a accelerator specifically on brand statement and foundation because it's so important that you look at where you are because you're going to change. Things change. We have a lot of things happening today that are going to be a paradigm shift for your business. So you have to reevaluate that as well. So always reevaluate and look at that and use AI. AI is out there. We have a lot of tools that we provide and we do in our program. And that's really important to help you. There's so much you can do with that. So leverage that, please. Your brand is everything.
Your brand is everything. Terry, thank you so much for being here, taking time to speak to our community, share your insights, and setting such a great overview. On behalf of the Nasdaq Entrepreneurial Center and everyone in attendance, we sincerely thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much. My pleasure. My pleasure.
Thank you. We would also invite you all to join us for our upcoming webinars. You can view the upcoming events by using the link in the chat. Thank you all so much for joining us today, and we look forward to welcoming you back online with us very soon.